All right, well, happy Saturday, or Sunday, I guess, actually, Central Georgia, and good morning. It's 11 a.m., so we just got the brand new advisory from the National Hurricane Center on Hurricane Umberto and on Tropical Depression 9. Sorry for my confusion. We've been calling it by so many names over the last couple of days that I just forgot for a second where we stand. So let's talk about both of these systems, what's new with this 11 a.m. update, what we're expecting to see for the rest of the day today, and what the latest trends are in terms of what we're expecting to see as we head into the upcoming work week. So you know the drill. I'm going to go ahead and take this full screen and we will dive into what is new with this latest update. So what you're looking at right now is some infrared satellite imagery of both of these systems. So you can see Hurricane Umberto still very impressive, and this has maintained a very impressive structure over the last couple of days. Last night actually became a Category 5 hurricane and has since dropped down to a Category 4 storm just because it's been undergoing some of its own eyewall replacement cycles and trying to rebuild itself. So it's at Category 4 strength right now, but nonetheless, still very, very strong. Looking somewhat less impressive, but starting to organize a little bit better is what is now Tropical Depression 9. So you can see this system right here. This would be sort of where the centralized low pressure is starting to take formation there. But what you're going to note as we kind of start talking about this 11 a.m. advisory and what's changed overall from last night to this morning, honestly, not a lot. This has been a very, very slow moving system. The National Hurricane Center maintains it's still very slow moving. It's going to take some time to still organize and get itself together. Now, I think we're still talking about a tropical storm within the next 12 to 24 hours, but it hasn't happened yet, and it's not showing major signs of happening extremely quickly as we kind of go throughout the maybe next couple of hours or so. So here is the new tracks of both of these storms, and I know they're overlapping, so it may be a bit disorienting to look at, but let's go a little bit closer here and we'll talk about each of them. So obviously we talked about Umberto, still a Category 4 storm, underwent some eyewall replacement cycle, but it will maintain that Category 4 strength until we get to the early work week next week. Now the good news is it's peaked. It's at the strongest that it was going to reach, and from here it is only going to weaken. You can see the cone of this particular system has started to get a lot tighter, so the certainty of where this is heading, how strong it's getting, what it's going to do has gotten a lot more clear. Namely how far to the west it's going to swing and how much that's going to impact the high pressure system in the region and how much that's going to impact potential tropical storm Imelda, which is right now Tropical Depression 9. So something else that has happened with the latest update, the 11 a.m. update. So we'll move on from Umberto. Not a ton of changes there. It's kind of the same situation. Obviously, this is not going to have direct impacts on us here in the United States. It's more about how is this going to impact Tropical Depression 9. And actually with this latest 11 a.m. update, I wish I could go back and show you the cone from 8 a.m. But the biggest changes that have been happening over the last 24 hours is how much the certainty in the cone has started to increase. Not only that, but how much this cone has gone from being way over here to now way over here. So we've seen a big shift in how far to the east and how far to the south this cone has tracked. And in fact, the National Hurricane Center in this 11 a.m. advisory has noted they've gone with another southerly and another easterly push with the latest forecast cone. So they're saying even further south and even further towards the east than the last cone. So that's a pretty sharp turn. And all that really means for us is just continued good news. I mean, that just means that there's more increased model certainty. A lot of the data is beginning to line up with one another, and the track is really starting to favor the possibility that Umberto is going to win in this kind of upper level war that we've been under over the last couple of days. What I mean by that is which kind of upper level feature is going to end up steering Tropical Depression 9, and it's becoming more certain here that it's going to be this very powerful Category 4 Umberto. So something else to note just while we're on the cone, The National Hurricane Center does still expect this to become a Category 1 hurricane sometime in between Monday and Tuesday, I believe would be the time frame there. Now, potentially could be a little later depending on how slow this system is moving. Clearly a lot has to happen to it for the rest of the day today for it to be able to get where it's supposed to be on Monday. So let's talk a little bit more about what has become certain over the last 24 hours or so. Not a lot of changes have happened, but tropical storm force conditions are expected in Bermuda within the next day or so. So throughout the day today and throughout the day on Monday, they have been in tropical storm warnings since yesterday. So this is not really a major change, but you know, when we see warnings, that tends to be the certainty that something is going to happen. So we are certain that the Bahamas will experience tropical storm force conditions, strong winds, and likely some really strong increased surf, strong waves, and heavy rainfall. I know that they have noted specifically the possibility for landslides and mudslides, things of that nature. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the advisory just so I can see if there's anything else of note here. Yeah, just heavy rainfall, even to parts of eastern Cuba, they have noted. Yesterday, we also got a tropical storm watch issued for parts of the eastern coast of Florida. Now, with this 11 a.m. advisory, that tropical storm watch is still in place, but even in their discussion, the National Hurricane Center did say, you know, this is looking like it's not really going to be a major wind event for any of the eastern continental U.S. So tropical storm watch is still in place there. They're going to be paying attention to this probably for the rest of the day today into the day Monday. That's when the potential tropical storm will be creeping by this portion that they have outlined of eastern Florida. But overall, it's not even necessarily going to be a major wind event in that region. They are going to have some really increased surf and rip currents there, but I think that the overall threat for tropical storm conditions, so these wind gusts over 40 miles an hour, may be starting to decrease as we get more certainty on this storm. And then beyond that, there are no other watches or warnings issued for any other portions of the Georgia, South Carolina, or North Carolina coasts. So we've been talking a lot over the last 2 days about North Carolina and South Carolina, and of course the Georgia coast as well. But those kind of direct inland mainland impacts seem to be decreasing the further out we get from this system making its impact. So let's take a look at the spaghetti models again. I've got the European model pulled up here. You know, what we pay attention to a lot is this kind of mean or centralized line here that is kind of showing where most of the agreement is with the spaghetti models. And again, similar to what I was saying about the cone, over the last couple of days, this has made a drastic turn to the south even. So even this morning with the 8 a.m. advisory, that line that I just drew there was kind of more along the lines of where a lot of this model data was at. So recently there has just been this big shift that this turn towards the east is going to happen sharply much further south than there was originally thought being. Obviously there's still a couple of outliers that try to draw Tropical Depression 9 in towards the coast here. I think that that scenario, the closer and closer we get to this thing getting closer to the United States, is becoming a lot less likely. So I think what we're kind of sitting at with now is really trending to be the most likely scenario. We'll play this out on the GFS as well, and something you may notice about the GFS, it has no spaghetti plots trying to have this make an inland push, and it also maintains that even further south. In fact, I'm interested to see that push towards the east happens even further towards the south than even in some of the European spaghetti models there. So if there's going to be one big takeaway from this 11 a.m. advisory, it's that things continue to trend towards best case scenario for us here in central Georgia, of course, but then also for all of the eastern, southeastern coastal states here in the United States. So Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, things are looking just about as positive as they could be, especially at this stage. So let's jump into the model data. Let's talk a little bit about the high resolution model. That's the graph model that we're looking at right now. So as the National Hurricane Center noted, this still hasn't really gotten its giddy up towards becoming a tropical storm just yet. You can see as we kind of take this out to say late tonight, maybe early Monday morning, you can kind of start to see the circulation forming there. So potentially we could be seeing it become a tropical storm later tonight or early tomorrow. And in fact, that was actually the original thinking all along. So the kind of push up in timeline that has happened throughout today maybe was just based on some recent model trends, but we're likely going to be having tropical storm Imelda probably by the time we wake up tomorrow. If not then sometime early tomorrow morning. So that's when we would have what would be Imelda still over the Bahamas. And now we're kind of talking about that the outer bands getting close to this region that's outlined for tropical storm watches here on the eastern coast of Florida. Some subsequent rain bands probably heading up to South Carolina, North Carolina, maybe the Georgia coast as well. Maybe a couple of light showers even here in central Georgia. Then we play this out into Monday evening, Tuesday night, into early Tuesday morning. See how little this thing has moved. Finally makes its way out of the Bahamas, and now it's just sitting here in the Atlantic off of the coast of Florida. Again, lots of rain heading towards the North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia coasts. And ultimately, with the lack of influence that this system is going to have over these areas, rainfall is really going to be the thing that we're paying attention to. So they'll get some outer bands in that region. Here in central Georgia, I think we'll be kind of a-okay in terms of our rainfall totals. Then, if this is going the direction that a lot of these models are thinking, it takes a pretty sharp turn before it really has the chance to impact the coastal regions here. So that's kind of what the graph model has been in line with as well. So before it even really has the chance to push major amounts of rain up into those areas, it could already be making that shift. In fact, I'm going to go see what so the National Hurricane Center, something you can't see on your screen here, but something that I'm looking at right now, has bumped down the potential rainfall totals from this event in those coastal regions. So North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia coast have all been bumped down. In fact, in the graphic that I'm looking at right now, the Georgia coast is expected to receive at most an inch of rain from this system. So something that even I'm learning just now as we're hopping on the stream is that the threat for flash flooding, overall high rainfall totals could also be decreasing the more that this starts to trend, taking a sharp easterly turn further towards the south. So if it never really has the chance to get to us, obviously it's never going to have the chance to put down a crazy amount of rainfall. Now things are going to look a little bit more drastic when we look at the long range models. That might look like a total washout of things here. It's just because these are lower resolution models. So it looks like it may be covering a broader area, or it may be overall more rainfall, when in fact it's really kind of the same situation that we're looking at like on the graph model. So playing this out to about Monday evening, you can see the same kind of situation as the graph, this storm hanging out down by Florida. Let's play both of these forward and see if that takes a sharp turn like how the graph model kind of has this system doing. And yeah, it maintains the same kind of thinking there. Sharp turn happening before this system really has the chance to even get up close to any of these coastal areas here. So that's kind of what the Euro and the GFS are both thinking as well. And the more model data that we can get that trends in this direction, the more and more of a positive thing that that's going to be, not only for our area. Of course, this was never a major threat for central Georgia, but definitely better news for these coastal areas that we're going to have to monitor the potential for flooding. So let's take a look at how the rainfall projections have changed on the long range models here. So we're looking at the GFS right now. The GFS still kind of maintains that there could be close to 3, if not over 3 inches of rain in areas like the coastal South Carolina. I do want to mention this model goes all the way out until Sunday of next week. So a week from now, there could be other rainfall events that add to those totals, but areas like the Georgia coast are continuing to trend lower and lower and lower. And in fact, this number is about, I want to say, over an inch lower than it was this time yesterday. I think maybe we'll get one more. Maybe if we, by the 2 p.m. run, if things are still trending this direction of hardly having this storm come up towards these coastal regions, we'll probably see these projections go down a good bit again. So, you know, we're really trending towards the best case scenario. I guess I'm kind of even realizing as I'm coming on here. Let's look at the European model. This one tries to push a bit of a higher rainfall total to the coastal regions by the end of next week, but it may not really be taking into account kind of the latest guidance. What I'm seeing from the National Hurricane Center is in those areas that you can see the totals for. So let's just pick out Charleston and Savannah. This is the European model, says over 5 inches of rain in Savannah and over 4 inches of rain in Charleston. Well, with the 11 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center, they say a lot lower than that, somewhere between 3 to maybe 4 inches on the high end. So we still could be talking about a substantial amount of rain in a couple of those areas, but the threat of just really damaging rainfall totals continues to trend on the lower side. So I would still say if you have interest in coastal regions like the Georgia coast, it's probably not the best time to be traveling. But overall, the threat of high damage from heavy amounts of rainfall is starting to look lower for coastal areas. So I showed this graphic yesterday. I believe that David Guerrero has been using this one a lot. Overall, we are here in central Georgia, not in the coastal areas. So we continue to really have no major impacts in our area. Now that has been the trend. There hasn't really been a lot that would have changed that scenario for us. But as we get a little bit closer to Monday, I mean, that is tomorrow, we can kind of get a better understanding of exactly what's going to be happening in our area. So I've noted there we could have some breezy conditions and it may actually filter in, some drier and some cooler air. I still think that to be the case, but let's talk specifically what that means. So through the day today, we won't really be impacted by this potential tropical system because remember, it's still got to get up here. Now we're at Monday afternoon. You can see a lot of cloud cover starting to enter our area. Obviously you can kind of see, and I don't have my, trying to use my clicker here. You can see influence from those bands of rain coming off of this system starting to impact parts of South Carolina, even parts of the Georgia coast here. But not all of that really gets the chance to make it up here. So we have a rain chance for Monday. I've thrown 20% chance of rain on the 7-day forecast. We'll have a lot of cloud cover and there will be occasionally a couple of scattered showers. I don't think it's going to be a washout for anybody by any means. I think it could be a bit of a dreary day. So you'll probably notice a good bit of clouds. Probably will feel like a system is near us. But in terms of us actually receiving impacts such as rain, I don't think that there will be much to point out there. So a couple of showers are possible through Monday. We'll start Tuesday off a similar way. So there'll still be a lot of cloud cover in our area. Again, you can see where things are much worse, where we're getting a lot more rain. It just doesn't really reach into the central Georgia area here. So clouds, a couple of occasional showers through Tuesday as well. The real question mark is going to be, will that be the story for Wednesday also? Or, like some of the latest model guidance is thinking, will this turn towards the east a bit earlier than Wednesday and we'll kind of return back to normal conditions by Wednesday? So we'll put a little bit of question mark on Wednesday, but at this point in time, I'm pretty confident about what's going to happen on Monday and Tuesday. Clouds, couple scattered showers, not a washout for anybody, and the most noticeable thing will be winds. So as we go throughout this system getting a little bit closer to us, if you were with me yesterday, which I will do it again for those who were not, I kind of drew what it looks like when a tropical system is coming through here. So it's rotating counterclockwise. So what that does for us is push a bunch of flow into our area that comes down from the northeast. So we'll probably get some pretty good wind gusts. Nothing right now that looks to be overly substantial. Right now, the National Weather Service in our area is saying probably wind gusts up to 25 miles an hour. That will be noticeable. It will probably be the type of thing that blows your hair around a lot when you step out of your car. One thing that it probably will do, which I always notice, is when you're driving on the highway and you can feel like the wind is shaking your car. It may be one of those kind of situations, but I'm not talking about tropical storm force winds or hurricane force winds in our area at all. It's just going to be some gusty winds that we'll probably have with us beyond Monday and Tuesday. It may stick with us through a good portion of the work week, just as this kind of disrupts our upper level pattern. It may keep the breeziness around there, but that's kind of why it would be coming in from the northeast. So that actually would end up being drier and somewhat cooler air. So let's take a look at the temperatures for the next couple of days, because I think that that's going to be of more interest to folks here because of the kind of lack of other things that we're going to have going on from this system. So I'm flipping over to temperatures. Just give the computer a second. All right. So it's still pretty warm today. We'll find our way back to the mid to upper 80s this afternoon. Still kind of staying warm in the overnight hours, low 70s tomorrow. We will have a lot of cloud cover tomorrow, so that's actually going to be the thing that keeps the numbers a little bit lower, upper 70s, low 80s. Same situation as we head into Tuesday. Because of cloud cover, because of occasional rain, upper 70s, low 80s. Now, once the system finally kind of gets out of our area, which of course this graph model is not going to go out quite as far as I would like to show, that's when we'll start to kind of have the influence of the flow coming in from the northeast. And think about it, if we have a bunch of air that's coming in from the northeast, that's where air is a little bit cooler and a little bit drier. So I'll just show you on the 7-day here. As we get to, we make it past our 2 days that are not going to be the best, we find our way to Wednesday, which again, I kind of have the rain chance still at 20 there, but we may end up dropping that if this system continues to trend away from us. But that's where temperatures will have sunnier skies and they'll still hang out in the 70s. So we're going to have a fall-like thing going on from about Wednesday through the weekend at this point in time. The overnight lows are going to work their way back into the low 60s and the upper 50s. Again, afternoon highs are going to be back in the 70s, and we should have drier air, maybe a couple of occasional showers. But other than that, it's going to be a lot drier. It'll be breezy. And the first day of the Georgia National Fair is on Thursday. So I was talking to Carmen Brown this morning about this. The fair was so hot last year. I believe we were in the upper 80s, if not the 90s. I think we're going to have a much different fair situation going on for the end of the week this week, because we'll have the breeze, we'll have the cooler air, and the temperatures don't look like they're going to have the chance to climb out of the 70s in the second half of the week. So now we have a lot of fall lovers. That is probably very, very exciting to a lot of people. So hopefully that gives you something to hold on to and just kind of emphasizes the point that there is a lot of generally positives actually for our area coming out of this system. We're not talking about major impacts for us here. And the way that the trends are going, we're not really talking about major impacts, honestly, for most of our southeastern United States. Now, there will still be the potential for some heavy rainfall totals along the coast. We'll have to pay attention to that going through the day today and into Monday. But overall, you've seen the way that this is trending. This continues to just look like it's going to take a really sharp turn. So the influence of Umberto has gotten stronger on this system. It seems to have won the upper level tug of war that Tropical Depression 9 has been under, and now it's really going to drive this system almost due east at some point as we go throughout the next couple of days. So overall, the impacts here, minimal and almost pleasant as we head into the second half of the week, and this disrupts what's going on in the upper levels of our atmosphere. We will keep paying attention to this. Don't be surprised to hear about Tropical Storm Imelda by sometime tonight or early tomorrow. That will be the next change that you'll hear about. You will also hear this become a hurricane likely by Tuesday night, maybe, or Monday night, maybe Tuesday morning. I don't want you to be freaked out by that either. That's still an expected projection that this is going to take. We're still expecting this to become a Category 1 storm, but it's not going to change the impacts that we're expecting to see here in our area or along the other states that we're paying attention to for impacts. So that's kind of the latest. As yesterday happened and the day before. David Guerrero will be in with the rest of the updates for the evening, so back tonight and back again at 2 p.m. with the latest updates. So he'll be here, and then we will just be paying attention to the system as we go throughout tonight and we go throughout the day tomorrow. But overall, the certainty of the forecast is increasing, and that's what we love to see, and it's continuing to look like it's really not going to be a problem for most of the United States. So more good news on the way there, but if you're looking for more updates, feel free to join David in just about 3 hours for the next update. I hope you have a great Sunday if you're not going to be joining us there. Thank you for joining me for this update, and we will again see you back here at 2 p.m. this afternoon.